Beyond Reach podcast gives the voice to brands, athletes, organizations in the outdoor space industry. Through open conversation, you're going to discover their stories, their successes and challenges, but also their vision. Welcome to the podcast. So welcome in the podcast, Mike. I'm very happy to have you, as you have multiple facets of your personality that is interesting to me to share with people today. So can you present yourself, your passion, your work as well? Yeah.
Sure. So, Mike, I'm down here in Florida on the east coast of the U.S. I did some jumping around over the past several years. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, moved to California for a bit, and now I live in Florida. All because I like surfing, so trying to stay close to the coast, if you will. And you might have noticed me on LinkedIn because I share a lot of my experiences around artificial waves. So you might call them wave pools, surf parks, wave parks. There's many different names out there, but long story short, I've been on a journey to surf as many different wave pools as I can around the world, which is a bit different because there's obviously a lot of different ocean breaks, but this is a really new space and it's intrigued me since I was a Grom, a real young surfer, always frothing for waves when it's flat here, but there's a wave pool that can produce a perfect wave on demand, so that's kind of where my obsession started with surfing. And then in terms of like career background, I've been in advertising and marketing, communications since grad school, and have been specifically focusing on social media for over 10 years now. So worked both on the ad agency side and more recently on the client side. So to have a pretty wide array of experience when it comes to social media marketing and advertising.
Yeah. And so we did have a call like a few days ago, and you were saying that you did work in the sport industry as a social media manager. You are also like a marketing director. You had like multiple facets in that industry. But yeah, can you tell us maybe your experience in it? And I know that right now, spoiler alert, you're not working as a social media manager in the sport industry. So can you tell us maybe your experience and why you moved?
Yeah, sure. It's probably contrary to what most believe when it comes to your career. Like you should work and align it with what you're passionate about. You know, if you love what you do, then you're not working. However that saying is, you don't work a day if you love what you're doing. Well, I tried to do that. After grad school, I made my way into the advertising field. Put in several years on the agency side, and then started a blog on fixed gear bicycles. Became quite obsessed with that culture and that industry, and because of that blog, I gained attention from some owners of these fixed gear bike companies, one of which offered me a position. So it was a tough call, but I decided to take a risk. Ended up working, taking the title of marketing director, moved several hours south of where I was at the time in California down to San Diego. And it became quite apparent I wasn't welcome once I joined that team as the marketing director, because I learned that I replaced a really well-known photographer that was in that same role. So it's a very tight-knit community in the fixed gear bicycle scene, especially down in Southern California. It made it very difficult to do my job when I was not welcome in there. The owner welcomed me, but it was like, who are you to come down here and think you can take over this really well-known bicycle company from a marketing standpoint? I did the best I could, and there was no relief, and it really put a damper on my passion, to the point where I ended up leaving after 6 months and I returned to the agency side, right back where I was, and learned a quick lesson that I was very passionate about this. I put all my heart into my work, into the social media strategy, the email marketing, the events, everything, because it's a really small team. and even within the team, there was a lot of tension. So I learned, like, it's probably best based off of my work ethic, my personality, to keep what I love separate from my everyday job. And then since that period of time, it's been a healthy balance, because I work for a nonprofit organization that's not tied to my background, and I'm able to separate my day, everyday full-time job from my love of surfing, which has been since I was 10 years old. So I'm being very careful how I move forward with this side hobby or obsession, whatever you want to call it, with these wave pools and surfing.
Yeah. And so what's the nonprofit you're working for right now?
Sure, it's the American Association of Critical Care Nurses.
Okay, I'll make sure to maybe put a link down below for people to check, because that's something that we need to support as well. Um, but okay, and you told me that you did work for Honda, is that right? I go.
Well, I worked on the agency side. I was part of the social media team that oversaw Honda. Yeah,
Okay.
Honda Automotive.
Okay, so you had some experience in the surf industry and some with the agency, and now you're just like working. So are you just a freelancer right now, or are you still in the agency?
No, I work full time for that nonprofit,
Okay.
AACN, American Association of Critical Care
Okay.
Nurses, for the last
Okay.
seven
Cool.
years. Like I said, it's a great organization with a lot great work life balance, which is what allows me and affords me to travel to these different wave pools, and then outside of work hours, I blog about all these experiences, because it's such a new space. I'm no pro surfer. I don't work in the surf park or the surfing industry. I'm not an influencer, so I'm just unbiased, candid, uh, you know, an authentic voice to give, to share, to showcase these experiences for anyone else who might be considering going to these wave pools. So I take a lot of pride in that, as being a paying customer with zero bias. And yeah, post a lot through LinkedIn, and more recently started a podcast of my own. So quite excited.
Okay, cool. What's the name of your podcast?
Sure, it's What the Froth.
What's the froth, and what you're
Because
talking
you're
about on that podcast?
sure. So far I visited 13 different wave pools. Surf
Okay.
13 different artificial waves around the U.S. and the world. So I met this bloke in Australia named Chevy, and he's like, "Hey, like, I've never been to a surf park. How would you feel if we hopped on a podcast and I interrogated you on all these different surf parks you've been to?" I'm like, "Sure, why not? It'll give me an opportunity to share, because not every single one has been a great experience. It's not all 100%. Yeah, this is fun. Go spend your hard-earned cash to surf an artificial wave when you can go to the ocean for free." So it's been really interesting deep diving into each of these 13 different artificial waves with him.
And so if you have to tease people, like, it's kind of like a tease of your podcast, but if you can give us an overall feeling about artificial waves and your experience, what's the overall feeling, and maybe, I don't know, artificial waves, I've never been there. What kind of system can you see there? Because I know that there is different waves that are produced by different systems. Some of, like, just like a kind of like a bubble coming from the bottom. I think there's some that are more mechanical. Yeah, if you can tell us your experience and kind of like your small knowledge, I suppose, in that.
Yeah, oh man, you're letting me nerd out on the very topic that I'm obsessed with. Sure. So let me first break artificial waves out into two rough categories. You have your traditional soliton wave pools, which is a kind of wave you'll see in the ocean moving forward, that's in a pool setting. And then the other type of wave is going to be a stationary or a standing wave. It's a wave that's not moving forward, staying in one place, and you have water moving upward on a surface to create the kind of the feeling of a wave. So between those two, there's so many different technologies being advertised, but there's only few out there that are actually been proven in concept. So for the traditional wave pools, you might have heard of Wave Garden. I think you just mentioned surf lakes. It's a giant plunger that would drop down into the water and then create a ripple effect, and then all these wave pools work with the bottom, the bathymetry. The shape of the bottom will allow that the wave to break like you would see in the ocean. So you got Wave Garden, Surf Lakes. You have Endless Surf is a new one that's coming out. Perfect Swell. Um, yeah, Kelly Slater Wave Co., which I'm sure you saw. The Surf Ranch in California is really famous.
Yeah.
So those are all traditional wave pools, and then the stationary waves you might have saw in a lot of social media viral videos. Unit Wave, which is kind of it's a machine that sits in like a lake or like just a separate body of water that can produce the standing wave, and it's really fascinating looking. And you have similar ones like City Wave, Epic Surf. So there's so many different technologies out there. Some had similar wave shape, but they all have different engineering and.
So did you try real surf outside of real surf, like in the nature type of vibe? Did you try that?
Sure. I mean, that's how I started. When I was 10 years old, my first wave I caught was in Daytona Beach, Florida. I have two older brothers that surf, and they pushed me into a wave, and I've been hooked since. Got my first surfboard on that family vacation down here in Florida, which is where I live now. So,
And
but yeah,
is there being a part of that community a little bit like how is the community evolving? Is it Are they for it, like for fake waves, or are they like I suppose some people are probably really against it and some people are really for it, but yeah, how do you see the community?
that's a great question because there was a lot of skepticism earlier on when these wave pools were coming to fruition. Kelly Slater, I think he announced his back in 2015, or it's been way back when, and there's a lot of purists that are like, we don't want that crap. You don't simulate nature. Like you have the real thing right here in the ocean for free. But then it's kind of contradictory because at the same point you have a lot of surfers who are like, I've been here forever. This is my home break. Some localism in the scene, get away, like priority in the ocean. So that's a reason why I gravitate towards it, because I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. That's 3 hours from the nearest ocean. So the best case in terms of progression is I would have to go on day trips during the weekends with my brothers throughout the winter too, when it's snowing out and cold in Ocean City, Maryland, or in New Jersey on the Jersey Shore. So until I was able, old enough to, I graduated undergrad, moved to Florida briefly before to California, and I was able to actually put some time in surfing. But even then, you're fighting for waves when there's a swell. So it's with a surf pool, you're gonna have to pay to play. You're going to have to pay for your session and your waves, but you're guaranteed a certain amount of tries on perfect waves in a wave pool. So you're going to get that opportunity to keep trying a trick over and over. So I think over the last, I say 5 years, it's been more accepted by the overall surf community. And I think over time, you're going to see less and less people arguing artificial waves and wave pools being built.
Yeah. And so how does the session work? You said that you have uh, like how does it work in general? Like maybe some wave pool you have 10 waves, maybe you have 20 waves. How does it work? How does the session work?
It varies by the wave technology and by the operator. I mean, I'll give you two different examples. More recently, I visited my home break wave pool, if you will. Since I'm in Florida, the nearest wave pool is Typhoon Lagoon, and that's actually a water park by day, and they rent out private sessions before and after the public water park hours. So you pay a lump sum. It's like $1,200 on a non-peak period. It could be more in the evenings and weekends. So we did a morning to be cheaper. So you can $1,200. You get 100 waves. It's roughly 3 hours long, but you get the 100 waves. It's the exact count. So it depends on how many people you want to divide that cost up by. We had people in our group, people back out, so it ended up being only three of us.
Okay.
They were paying 400.
So you tend to go with friends, so you divide the costs. Okay.
Exactly, but the more people you have, the cheaper it is, but the less waves you're going to get out of that 100, because no one's giving up waves, and you're taking turns.
Or you have to learn how to share waves somehow.
Right. Well, you get to choose. That's the beauty of a surf park. You can choose rights, lefts, or split peaks. And the split peaks is a shorter ride, but you get two people in one wave
Oh,
out of
you mean
100.
you mean in certain parks you can ask for different waves, like you can ask for right, for left, or for a split?
Correct. For Typhoon Lagoon, you get to choose because you're paying for that session, no matter how many people come. The public surf parks where you're not renting a private session, you're joining a group of other people you never met. That you have to choose. You want rights or lefts depending on the wave technology. Like Wave Garden, there's two different sides. If you do a different like Perfect Swell, which is in Waco, Texas, that you get half an hour of rights. It rotates like rights and then lefts.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
So before we tackle maybe a little bit about the social media aspect of it and how you see it and how you saw it maybe evolve over time, I think there is a big question that you can't avoid. That question is the eco-friendly aspect of it. Um, and I'm not saying I'm not putting it down because like everything should be down. So there's nothing that is best like but better than another one. But how do you see that aspect?
Sure. Well, again, I don't work for any of these wave technologies or these operators, but I could say that they put a lot of effort into making sure it's as environmentally conscious as they can be. For example, the wave in Bristol, England, they're now 100% solar powered.
Okay.
So all their wave technology, the power behind pushing those waves is completely solar powered. So they're not using any other fossil fuels. That only happened I think last summer, and it took them a while to get to that point, but they did that. There's issues, you could argue there's issues with sourcing water. That depends on where the surf park is. And I know they use recycled water for, like, I think an example would be the one in Hawaii, the Waikato lineup. I think it's like five or more years they use the same water in there, and it's filtered and cleaned, purified in other ways, but they're not just sourcing, always refreshing the water within the pool. They're using it and making it last. And then I know there's other surf park consultants that explain that, a golf course actually uses significantly more water to keep it fresh. There's a lot more golf courses out in the world that are just using water nonstop to keep it looking green for their members than an actual surf park. So if you want to compare it to these other attractions that use a lot more water, then it's something shiny and new. A wave pool, we don't need that, and how dare you, because you're going to use all these resources. But if you look at the larger picture, there's a lot of other attractions that are taking advantage of the environment more so than wave pools. But at the end of the day, you're right. Like there's going to be some use of natural resources to build these.
Yeah, oh, of course, and that's why I was saying that it's not like you can't blame it, because if you blame surf, you have to blame golf, you have to blame everything in anyway. So it's not. But is there any stories maybe of like people being against it in some part of the world, like especially in the US, when you have like in the middle of the desert, you could have like a wave pool, which like it makes nonsense. Do you know any stories maybe where people were against it and came on site and that type of thing?
I mean, I've seen in some news headlines here and there. Like in Palm Springs, there's several surf parks that were proposed and planned, and city, even to the point where some of them got approved, and then later on, when they had like a city council vote, they ended up flipping their vote, and all majority voted against the project, and I think they just went back to the drawing board to see if they could adjust to adhere to whatever complaints there were, whether it be noise, lighting at night, because you have to have the lighting to illuminate the wave pool if you're going into the evening surf sessions. So, lighting, noise, water sources, energy use are all considerations that local municipalities can argue. And same thing with up in Canada. I know, I'm not too familiar with the area, but I know there's a surf park up on, I think, closer to Vancouver that is getting a lot of pushback because of traffic patterns. If they're expecting a lot of traffic, that's going to affect the local community, and that's frowned upon. So they're trying to address that. There's so many considerations. I'm only a customer,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
obsessed
sure.
with surfing these wave pools. So, but I wonder how they get around some of these obstacles.
Yeah. And have you tried river surfing? Yeah, you were talking about Canada, and we had Alberta river surfing. Have you tried it?
I've tried it in Ohio. In Dayton, Ohio, there's a dude that runs like a little surf shop out of a container, a shipping container, and he does classes. So I did a road trip and ended up stopping in Dayton just to try river surfing for the first time, and it was different. It was a smaller wave, so I couldn't get too technical with the tricks. But
Yeah.
definitely, it made me think, well, what about the artificial version of this, like the city wave or the unit? And at that time, I didn't try those yet, so it definitely related when I was able to finally try the artificial wave version of those, the river surfing.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking like if you have to compare uh, waves in pools, so artificial waves and river surfing, it's kind of the same because like in Canada's case in Calgary, they have, I think it's the mountain wave that's made like that. They have a dam that is controlling the water, and they can control how much water they want or whatever. So in the same idea, it river surfing is not necessarily cleaner than artificial waves in pools. Like it's
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because there's these artificial wave technology companies that are making their technology adaptable to our existing water basin, so a river. For example, flow surf, which is stemmed from Flow Rider.
okay.
They just announced it back in September that they partner with Hydro Stadium. They just showed like an actual example. They built this system that's an existing river, and it's using the bathymetry, the bottom, to create a standing wave in an existing river, and there's a surfer riding it. It's like you can't argue that that's misusing the water. It's just putting it in an appropriate spot and building a wave out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, but you will still have like I had this discussion with the guy from Alberta River Surfing because creating a wave is also you're touching the environment in the sense that in the river you have fish, and so you have all that thing also that you have to analyze now because if you have maybe not salmon in Alberta because salmon they need to be next to the sea, but you have maybe different fish, so you have to then think about maybe a river on the side that's just for fish, right? Like, so you have like different considerations to take on. So it's not necessarily easier. It's probably harder because you're also touching the environment that other people were used to be on. Like if I don't know, they were enjoying the river and now there's this giant wave. Like anyway, like you're touching so many aspects of it. But it's very, very interesting. It's a very interesting sport that is evolving, and no one really knows where this is going, but it's very interesting.
I'm learning through this podcast right now. Like again, just being a customer, it's I don't see that side of the engineering and how it's built and the concept and what it can affect because I'm just showing up and surfing. So I'm naive and would love to know more about that.
Yeah. And so coming back to the social media aspect of it, so how did you see it evolve? Like social media is constantly evolving, but how did you see it evolve in terms of like I don't have a precise question I have to say on that, but in terms of content, how did it evolve, for example?
I mean, it's I'm so I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and I so you can get burnt out when you work in this space for a long time because it changes so often and so quickly. So when you're talking evolution, I think it was much more welcoming 10 years ago when you weren't fighting an algorithm based feed. So you would post something, your followers would see it. Nowadays, you post something, you're going to get like less than 1% of your followers are going to see the post, which is a shame. So why would you follow someone in the first place? It's because all these social channels are built off of advertising revenue. So they're going to serve you, you mix in ads. They're going to use their algorithm to feed you more viral type content that you think they predict you'll like watching or viewing because they want you to spend more time in their app. So I feel, and I'll be the first to say I'm not an expert because no one can be an expert because it changes so quickly. You could try your best to keep up on the best practices, but they change almost by the day. So if, to start a new channel, a new brand, a new organization, it's very difficult nowadays. From a athlete standpoint or a celebrity standpoint, it's a bit easier because you already have affinity. People know you have likeness, so you can start a profile. They're likely going to seek you out, find you, and follow you. And then the other part is shock value. Like you can post, a lot of people like to do really surprising videos, and that gets a lot of attention. And you're more likely to end up in the explore feed for some of these channels. Like you might like this, and you'll see the video and get some more attention. I just, I don't have any concrete advice because it is so difficult nowadays. You have to consider everything from content creation to paid advertising to campaign strategy, contests and sweepstakes, all that taken in consideration to help build a community around your, whatever you're communicating through these social channels.
Yeah. And what would be for like the thing is that you have different facets, like you have athletes, but you also have clothing brands, you have so many different profiles. But for brand, what would you maybe recommend in terms of like how to get noticed in an easy way? Is there, I know there is no secret formula for sure, but is there a way to be like, that's kind of like what I'm trying to do here? For example, having a podcast, do you think a brand should start a podcast to be more accessible, more authentic to the audience?
Yeah, there's so many different channels of communication. So when you're talking about podcasts and talking about social, even within social media, there's many different channels you could choose, and each of those are supposed to specialize in certain types of media, like TikTok for short form entertainment video. But now Instagram used to be, static images. Now it's, we also want to be in that space, same space as TikTok, short form videos in terms of reels. And then you have Twitter, X, whatever it's called nowadays, fighting for the same attention. Facebook's supposed to be everything. I never thought I would be on a podcast or hosting my own. And it's like you're what you're ultimately trying to do is figure out where your audience is and how to reach them at the right place at the right time through the right media with the right message. So if you feel that's podcast, then that's what you would move forward with. You want to cross promote that podcast through social media. Which channel makes the most sense? Where is that audience at that you can grab their attention and say, hey, I'm on this podcast. So I know from, my experience and the most recent organization I've been with, we have like 4 main social media channels that we know our community's on. We always consider and explore new channels, but with a lot of thought before we just hop right in. So, because we have to, with social media, it's so funny when you have, everyone seems to understand and know best how to do social because anyone can post. It's accessible, but there's much more thought behind when you have to post from a brand standpoint. You can't just go out there and say whatever you want willy-nilly. There's several rounds of reviews. We had to work with our creative partner team who helped design the visuals or edit the videos, work with a team of nurses because I come from a nurse organization. So they have to review it from a clinical standpoint. So a life of a post can take several weeks for one post to go out. So
and then the posts go bad.
Well, that's depends on the time of day and the bidding system when you're doing advertising, because you can use paid advertising to target a really hyper focused audience. Members of our organization, make sure they see it, because if you don't, you rely on organic reach for any social channel. That's when you might fall short. Feel like, oh well, no one's very little of my audience see it, even though they follow me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very hard. So yeah, no specific tip, but yeah, it's basically strategize your social media before jumping into it, and is it possible to, I don't know, like being a social media manager, maybe you can tell me, is it possible, like if I build a new brand, is it possible to have social media consultant that could help with that?
There's definitely a lot of people out there that advertise their services as a social media consultant. Agencies are going to cost you more because it's a larger team, and then the other option is you have in-house social media managers, strategists. That's the other thing with social media. It's even though it's been around for over 10 years now, it's still a lot of confusion around job titles. You got your social media coordinators, your social media strategists, your social media specialists, social media managers, social media creative. Like just it's just funny because in my experience, it's usually if your social media is in your title, you get to do everything no matter what it is. Say someone complains through a social media channel, then you're the social media customer care person. Like even though you don't come from a customer care department, you become that because it came through a social channel. So yeah, there's a lot, there's so many different job titles out there, and everything from, like you mentioned, freelance or consultant to ad agency to in-house.
And what do you think about like we are making videos, so we are in the kind of like in this industry, advertising, some social media. What do you think about the evolution of storytelling and brand stories? Do you see like this authenticity coming back? Maybe not coming back. Maybe just coming. How do you see that?
I think storytelling is very important. The unfortunate reality is, if you're telling a story through a series of posts, you're not going to get the same exact viewer in that every part of that series. There's no guarantee you're going to reach that same person, so they can follow that story. So you have to kind of compact that message into one post, the main point at least that you want to get across, or the call to action.
Yeah, but do you see more and more brands using their own story, like promoting their own story?
Uh, I don't. I Yes and no. It depends. Like some still don't. I feel like some don't understand that they can leverage the story and just kind of do push marketing, like come buy our product. Here's what we have on sale, and that's like the extent of it. They're not telling a story. They're just saying, here's what we have. You should buy it. So there's a mix, and I mean, I feel like if everyone on same thing, if everyone started telling a story, it's so just these channels are so oversaturated. How are you going to pay attention to every single story? Any viewer, like it's overwhelming. So even if you do put that effort out there to share your story, I would just warn that you might not get the outcome that you're looking for always, because there's so many other people fighting for that same attention.
Yeah, and but it also depends where and how you promote it in a way. Like what we do, we say that the story should be on the website. That should be something that is accessible that way. So and then you can make social media post out of your story. Uh, it doesn't necessarily, like you said, not necessarily going to attract people because it's oversaturated. However, you can work on your social media pin post, for example, on Instagram, through your storytelling video for your brands. So I get, but I'm not a guru. Like you said, no one is
Neither
a
am I.
guru. You're just trying. You're just trying something. You're offering something. Like you said, you can't really sign on paper the outcome of like what you're saying. Even as a social media consultant, you can say, "This is the thing to do," and then nothing happens. Like it's not your fault. It's just like that. It's a big competition. Okay. One of the very last question would be, what's your vision? What's Mike doing in 5 years, and how is the social media aspect of it going to evolve in your personal life, and maybe in the future? How do you see it going?
Well, that's a tough question. I can't see that far in the future. So I just hope that I've checked off many more wave pools, artificial waves, because there's going to be a lot coming to life over the next 3 to 5 years. So that's exciting. A lot more traveling. And I mean, career-wise, I'm at the point where I just want healthy work-life balance. I take a lot of, a lot of integrity in my work. So no matter where I work, I'm going to continue that, taking pride in working my hardest, whether it's for, where I'm at now, or, if I end up on the surfing side, who knows, but just trying to find that balance and stay healthy. And yeah, that's all I have. Yeah, I can't. That's so much can change in the next 5 years. So
Yeah. So a peaceful life, trying to find a balance all the time, which is a nice answer. Like I think there's more and more people trying to find a balance. If you're balanced right now, lucky you, because we're not all in balance. I'm not in balance. I need to go back to the gym. I need to go back to a little bit more sports and stuff. I'm really like overwhelmed, like doing the business and doing the business, which is good, but yeah. So that's a really really good answer that we need to listen to. Well, thank you very much for being a part of that podcast and this episode. I hope that the people listening and watching did learn something. Again, I'm going to drop like some links from the charity, the non-profit that you're working for, so they can check that out. And thank you for all your knowledge and some of your customer experience. I hope that you did attract some people to try surfing in an artificial pool, but also river surfing. Because it's a really interesting sport, and I think it's also a good introduction to then go and try the surf in the nature, like the real surf, like the source for the purists. Well, thank you very much, and we keep in touch for sure. Thank you very much.
yes, thank you for inviting me.